Jó napot kívánok!
So, dear students, dear colleagues, dear guests, let me welcome all of you. As you know, we have a very distinguished guest today, Mr. Andrus Ansip, Vice President of the European Commission. Before I introduce him, let me say a few words about how today's event fits into the lecture series that we had during the last couple of months in this auditorium. As you probably recall, most of the presentation, lectures, and debates focused on some fundamental values, such as openness, tolerance, justice, and also the possible trade-offs between these values in a globalized world. We haven't spoken that much about how we would implement these ideas, about the practical side of these issues. We haven't talked that much about what are those specific policies, regulations that help these causes. What are those policies and regulations that have been worked out by the European Union that really affect our everyday life? Our distinguished guest is very well positioned to speak about these issues. His political record is truly impressive. He was elected in 1998 to be mayor of Tartu, the academic capital of Estonia, and held this position for 6 years. Then in 2004, he became the chairman of the Reform Party, which is a centrist liberal party. And subsequently, he was elected to the Estonian parliament. He became Minister of Economic Affairs and then Prime Minister. And he kept this job for more than 9 years. He headed 4 different governments, worked together with center-left and center-right parties, and under his leadership, his party's parliamentary representation almost doubled. Now, in most European countries, we know how popular particular politicians are only from opinion polls, because people vote for parties, but Estonia is a little bit different. So we know how much social support is behind individual politicians. When Andrus Ansip ran for national office first time in 1999, then he was the 53rd most popular politician in Estonia. Then in 2003, he was the 5th. In 2007, he was the 1st. And in 2011, he was the 2nd. And in 2014, when he ran for the European Parliament, he was again number 1. He retained this impressive degree of popularity in very, very difficult times. You have to remember that this is the period when we had, among other things, the world financial crisis. And that was the time when many prime ministers were ousted because of the crisis. It wasn't the case with him. He retained his popularity and position. Estonia recovered very fast under his leadership, and he brought the country into the Eurozone. Now, in 2004, he became member of the European Parliament, and then he became Vice President of the European Commission, responsible for a single digital market. In this particular capacity, he has played a crucial role in the development of many policies that affect our life. Just to refer to a few, the abolition of the cell phone roaming prices, or the development of a new code for social media providers like Facebook and Twitter concerning such sensitive issues like hate speech. Vice President Ansip is here to answer your questions. The discussion will be moderated by Uwe Puetter, professor at CEUR, specialist on EU, and whose most recent article on the European seminar just came out at the European Journal of Public Policy. So join me in warmly welcoming Vice President Ansip.
So the idea is that the floor is yours, and you probably want to kick it off.
Yeah, thank you very much, Zsolt, for those kind words. And but he didn't mention that we have some kind of family relations also. His wife and then my wife, mothers, they are sisters. So Anna is sitting there. My wife is not here. So I'm happy to be here in your university. Honorable Rector, Pro-Rector, professors, students, ambassadors, excellencies. The fact that I'm here shows also my feelings I have connected with their university. For Estonia, Central European University was a really important institution, and a lot of Estonians, they got also their education here in Budapest. So I would like to talk today about digital issues, but I would like to say that we always had good relations with the Open Estonian Foundation. It was really supportive for Estonia. Many young people, they got their grants thanks to this foundation, and we didn't have any kind of tensions, and I'm pretty surprised that you have some kind of tensions here in Hungary. Well, but about digital single markets. So, Rector Magnificus, I have to show you that I prepared a lecture. So, I did it, but I hope right now it's published already in my Twitter account, and no need to read the text which is public already. So I hope you already have a lot of questions, and I'll try to respond to those questions. But for introduction, I would like to say that the situation in Europe when talking about digital issues is not so good. When I was Prime Minister, but it was a long time ago already, then I guess it was in the year 2011, we discussed about digital issues with our colleagues, and then we decided there has to be digital single market in the European Union, and we set the target, 2015. As we all know, we were able to create single market in physical meaning in the European Union already 25 years ago. We were able to tear down those barriers dividing our member states in physical meaning. But because of the fact that our economy, our life is becoming every day more and more digital, we can see how those barriers are coming back. And almost every morning, we can see that those barriers are higher and higher. So, according to analysis prepared by the European Parliament, the cost of non-Europe in digital meaning is huge. 415 billion euros a year. We don't have this money. And message is clear, we have to create digital single market. Instead to have huge single market with 500 million healthy customers, in fact, we have 28 relatively small markets. So, in May 2015, we launched our digital single market strategy. And as you remember, all the prime ministers and presidents, they promised that there will be digital single market in the European Union by 2015, but in fact we got the strategy 2015, moving ahead like rockets. So, and on basis of this digital single market strategy, this commission launched already 44 different proposals, including 24 legislative proposals, but only with the 6 proposals we reached this final destination. But I'm proud even about those 6 proposals where we were able to reach this final destination. And it is already mentioned those roaming surcharges. In the United States of America, for example, people, they don't remember about those roaming surcharges anymore. But here in the European Union, we have a generation of people who knows how dangerous it is to use your mobile devices when traveling in some other EU member states. Since 15th of June this year, no roaming surcharges anymore. it wasn't easy for us to abolish those roaming surcharges in the European Union because situations in different member states, they were different and they are different. In southern member states, Malta, Cyprus, Greece, for example, those mobile operators, they have to make investments to provide services for tourists visiting those beautiful countries only during the free summer month. And it means they are not able to get revenues during the other 9 months. Of course, I'm simplifying maybe too much of the situation, but your rector always said, keep it simple. So I tried to follow. And at the same time, in Nordic countries, those prices for megabits, gigabits, voice minutes, they are on a very low level. And if you don't have to pay high prices, you would like to use those megabytes. And average consumption in Finland, for example, is already somewhere 13 gigabytes per month per person, and average for the whole European Union, just 1 tiny gigabyte. So, and prices, they are also very different in the European Union. In Finland, for example, you can buy 100 times more gigabytes for the same amount of money than here in Hungary, for example. So I'm talking about digital fuel monitor and their data. So it's not so that somebody is against, somebody is in favor, and this is just about political will. Economical situations, they are different in different member states. But first, the results about the European Union. They are good results in meaning of consumer's point of view. During the first month, when people they were able to join this roam like at home, consumption of those megabytes or gigabytes or voice minutes by our people traveling in some other countries, EU member states, increased for 3 to 6 times. Not for 3 to 6% or something like this. 3 to 6 times. When in the country I know best, in Estonia, Telia, mobile operator, started to provide roam like at home services for Estonians traveling to Finland, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Lithuania and Latvia. Then, during the first 6 months, consumption by Estonians of those gigabytes in traveling in those countries increased even for 30 times. 30 times! And this is not a record. I saw an article according with in one member state's increase was even for 60 times. Not 6%, not 60%, 60 times. It means those roaming surcharges, they were like real barriers for our people in the European Union. Now, no roaming surcharges anymore. So I think I already have some kind of legacy. But it's not enough. It's not about single markets yet we would like to create in the European Union, also in digital meaning. I'm happy that we were able to agree also in allowing portability of the content for our people. As we all know today, if people they have legal access to some kind of digital content in one country, then when traveling to some other countries, no access anymore. Sorry, this video is not available in your country. Everybody saw those messages. So, but let's take Denmark and Sweden. So every day, 50,000 people, they are crossing this bridge connecting Denmark and Sweden. So what we have to say to those people? Make your choice. Live in the same country where you are working in. So it sounds crazy, but now it's so that when in another EU member states you will not have access to your legally bought digital content in your home country. It's not normal. So we were able to reach consensus in the European Union next year, since second quarter of the next year. Our people, they will enjoy portability of the content. It means when traveling in some other EU member states, they will get access to their legally bought movies, music, TV series, e-books, audiobooks, football, which is really important, especially here in Hungary, and for me too. So I'm happy that we were able to reach this agreement. But it's not enough. Unjustified geo-blocking. Once I said I hate unjustified geo-blocking. I still hate unjustified geo-blocking. Why? We organized so-called mystery shopping survey. And according to those results, 2% of those people who tried to buy some goods and services from another country, they couldn't get access to those websites providing those services because their IP address was wrong. They were from wrong countries, from Hungary, from Estonia, from France, from Germany, anyway, from some wrong EU member states. 2%, it's almost nothing. Why we have to deal with 2%? But 27% of those people who were able to registrate, who were able to get access, they couldn't registrate. Because once again, they were from wrong countries. From the United Kingdom, from Italy, from Belgium, anyway, from some wrong countries. 32% of those lucky people who were able to registrate, they faced with delivery problems. And to deal with those natural problems, we launched our parcel delivery proposal. I didn't think that I had to deal with the parcel delivery issues and those prices. But looking on those prices, we can see huge differences in different EU member states. Lowest parcel, cross-border parcel delivery prices when talking about 2 kilograms parcels in the European Union, they are in Netherlands, €10.50. And difference between domestic parcel delivery prices and cross-border parcel delivery prices is also the lowest one in the European Union, just there in Netherlands, 1.6 times. We know this business is also volume business, and if cross-border volumes, they are not so high volumes, big volumes, then price has to be higher. But average difference between domestic parcel delivery prices and cross-border parcel delivery prices in the European Union is 3 to 5 times. I can live with this. But in one EU member state, this difference is even 22 times. So who the hell is able to pay 22 times more for cross-border parcel delivery than domestically? When this is not about protectionism, then I would like to know what this protectionism really means. So we will find solution for parcel delivery issues, but 26% of those people who didn't have any kind of problems with parcel delivery issues, they couldn't pay because their credit cards were issued in wrong countries, in Hungary, in Estonia, in Ireland, anyway, in some wrong countries. We have SEPA in the European Union, single European payments area, but nevertheless, 26% of those people who didn't have any kind of problems, they couldn't pay for their purchases. All in all, just 36% of those people who tried to buy some goods and services online from another EU member states, they were able to conclude those purchases successfully. And of course, my question is this really about single market we would like to have in the European Union when only every third person is able to conclude those purchases successfully? So It's much more about discrimination on basis of somebody's nationality or where his credit card was issued than about single market. Message is clear. We have to abolish unjustified geo-blocking. Then we have to deal with free data flows. As we know, trend globally is not so good. More and more forceful data localization rules every day. In the European Union, we have 56 different rules in 21 member states dealing with forceful data localization. When talking about free data flows, I'm talking about non-personal data. But anyway, they say data will be really protected if we will keep those data collected in our countries, inside of our countries. So this is a real obstacle for digital economy in the European Union, and we have to set this free data flows principle as a basic principle in EU legislation. So, as I said, we launched 44 different proposals. I covered just 4, maybe even 5. I think now it's time for your interventions and questions, and I'll promise I'll try to respond, but I cannot guarantee that you will get exactly you are expected to get. Thank you.
Many thanks. Let's open it up for questions and discussion, and I suggest that if there are students who want to intervene or pose questions to Commissioner Ansip, then they go first. Are you a student? Okay, give it a try.
Thank you very much. I'm Michele Orza, President of the European Chamber, and also Digital Leader Europe of the World Economic Forum. On Tuesday, we'll be meeting the new Prime Minister of Estonia, which I know is not the same party of yours, but we will give a suggestion of the World Economic Forum of creating a pan-European ecosystem for IT and also entrepreneurship, which is very closely connected to the thing that you say. So if you have some message you can give me to give to your new Prime Minister. Second thing, pan-European ecosystems and also digital single market. At the end, there's one problem. Of course, we love it, but there's one big problem. At the end, these pan-European systems, they are giving a too big advantage to multinationals. Actually, multinationals are able to use it much faster, much better than small and medium enterprises, which is intended for them, but then it's, the system are, let's kind of sometimes abused by multinationals. We were reading that Apple, by using different locations in Europe and now in Jersey Island, which is not European Union, but is in Europe, I mean, they are paying an average of 1 to 7% taxes on the things that they are selling to all of us. Well, my company in Italy was paying 36% of taxes, like 36 times more than Apple. My company in Hungary, when I used a company, was paying 16%, 16 times more. So there's a problem here. So how can we make a digital market for Europe, which is the area, that balances the opportunities and reduce the abuse of the multinationals?
Well, thank you. I will take just one question because I'm pretty old already, and maybe I will forget about those questions if there will be too many of them. Europe is full of creativity. We have a lot of really good startups. But how to scale up here in Europe? This is a tricky question. Those global companies, global service providers, they are able to understand about 28 different sets of rules. They have enough lawyers, enough funds to hire lawyers, and to understand about those differences in different member states. But for startups, to understand about 28 sets of rules, it's too complicated. So, when talking about data flows, once again, for global service providers, it's even possible to have data centers in all 28 EU member states. But for startups, absolutely impossible. Digital single market will be beneficial for everybody. It will be beneficial also for those global service providers, because this fragmentation of EU market is not unique selling proposition for those service providers. They would like to be also more focused on quality of their services, instead to deal with those fragmented small markets. So, but it will be especially beneficial for startups, for small and medium-sized enterprises to have one set of rules instead to have 28 sets of rules. So today, when thinking about our startups who have to deal with 28 different sets of rules, we will send a very simple message to those startups. Stay at home or go to the United States, where there is a single market with more than 300 million healthy customers. We don't want to send that kind of message to our startups. It has to be possible also to scale up here in the European Union, and that's why we had to create digital single market in the European Union. About taxation, it's not an easy task to create really level playing field for all the players. We launched already our VAT proposal, and we would like to simplify those rules, to harmonize those rules, and to make life for our businesses also more easy. Instead to deal with 28 different tax departments, they have to deal only with their own tax department, and this tax department will deal with other member states. It's a remarkable simplification for our businesses. Then, when talking about small consignments we are getting from the third countries, then we can see how those volumes are increasing, quite rapidly increasing. 15 years ago, because of this exemption, tax exemption for small consignments under 22 years, we lost approximately 100 million years. Today, we are talking already about 1 billion years. And not to get some kind of tax money, it's just, half of this problem. How our own small and medium-sized enterprises, they can compete with those companies, with those producers who don't have to pay taxes. Hungarian companies, they have to pay value-added tax from the very first forint already. And if somebody does not have to pay those taxes, then it's pretty difficult to compete with them. So we organized also some kind of experiment dealing with the rare parcels. And according to those results, I hope I'm not mistaken, but 63 or 64% from all those small consignments, they said 20 euros and 20 euros, they were connected with tax fraud. They said 20 euros and 20 euros, but when you put together those two small consignments, then it was mobile phone, not about 40 euros, but 400 euros. So we somehow fixed this problem already, but we have to reach final agreement. I hope we will reach this agreement during Estonian presidency this December. But taxation of digital economy, it's a more complicated issue. We got all those tax rules, international rules from OECD. But now we are waiting for those rules for years already, but If somebody is blocking, then you will not get those rules from OECD. It means we have to try to act just in the European Union. Why we have to act? Let's think once again about level playing field. In my country, there are many of those sharing economy platforms dealing with taxi services. So if one service provider does not have to pay corporate tax, for example, and another local one has to pay this corporate tax, then how they can compete? This price for consumer provided by a global player will be always on a lower level than domestic players they can provide. So there is a problem, and there is quite big unanimity when we are talking about problem definition. But when talking about solutions, then there are different interests and not so easy to find this solution. Many proposals they were made already. For example, to tax turnover. Okay, talking about taxi services, Uber. Yeah, global service provider, didn't pay taxes, corporate tax in Estonia. Drivers are paying personal income tax because together with tax department they created an app which allows to pay those taxes online. This is not the case. But anyway, they are not paying corporate tax in Estonia. Local service provider has to pay corporate tax. So what about this level playing field? We don't have this level playing field. So we have to work with those issues. But I mentioned Uber. Last year they faced with losses, $3 billion US dollars. So if we will tax turnover, then does it mean that we will start to tax losses? It also sounds crazy. So it's not an easy task. Then virtual presence. You don't have to be physically there if you have activities in some countries. So a lot of consumers are there, then it means you have to pay taxes. In the European Commission, we decided that taxes, they have to pay taxes in the countries where they are generating profits. So as a principle, it's simple, easy to understand, but not so easy to implement.
Okay, can I suggest, because we are a bit short of time, that we have two
then I will shorten my answers.
And you just select your answers. I have one, I just want to sort of, I have one intervention here, another over there, and then I think, Andre, I have you as well. Perhaps we can take you through one after the other and keep it short if possible.
Okay. So I'm a student at CEU, and my question is related partly to the taxation, because I wanted to buy a Bosch machine here in Hungary, and they told me that if I buy it somewhere else, like abroad, in Slovakia, Austria, wherever, maybe due to VAT differences, then the guarantee will not be valid for Hungary. So it's kind of, you buy the same machine. I think it's an obstacle to single market, that you buy the same machine online from a Hungarian online shop, then you have the Hungarian invoice and you get the guarantee for the machine. But if you do the same thing, you cannot do it from the same thing from, that's what they told me in the showroom at least, that it's not possible because then the guarantee is not going to be valid for the same machine.
Inside of the European Union,
yes.
Guarantee has to be valid across the European Union, and you can buy some equipment from one country and to use this equipment in another country, and guarantee has to be still valid. It's not in my portfolio, but it's a basic principle. We have Rome 1 and Brussels 1 rules, and that according to those rules, our consumers, they have right to ask for guarantees across the European Union.
So
Sorry.
You can
I
complain,
intervened.
actually. And you can complain, actually. Yeah. There's one question more.
Hi there, my name is Mark Downey. I'm a student at the CEU. I love Michaela's question. I look forward to having a glass of wine and discussing this because I think you're fundamentally talking about a reconstruction of capitalism rather than digitization there. But I was just wondering, digitization is often about speed and agility and making things faster, and you alluded to the different interests within the political powerhouses that make the decisions. If we digitize it, are we not just going to speed up the destruction? And I don't see any of the goals relating to digital Europe that talk about digitizing the political processes at the top. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Reply directly.
We have a lot of examples about digitizing political processes, and the whole e-government concept. It's about your ideas. According to my understanding, all those e-governmental solutions, they are much more efficient than those traditional ones. Those solutions, they are also much more transparent than those traditional ones. And as a rule, those digital solutions, they are also much more inclusive than those traditional ones. And this is a reason why all those decisions made by governments, they have to be digital by default, open by default, and cross-border by default. I know about my own country, for example, how beneficial it was for Estonia to introduce those digital identities for all the people. Just because of digital signatures, we were able to save 1 working week a year, which is equal to 2% of GDP, which is equal to our defense expenditures in Estonia. So in some countries we can say defense expenditures, they are coming from digital signatures. So I don't know about Norway, but about Sweden. Just recently, their minister said that because they introduced e-procurement system, in some sectors they were able to save 20% of spendings. 20%, where? In Sweden. Level of corruption in Sweden is 0. And anyway, they said they were able to save 20% of their expenditures. The same from Portugal. When they implemented this e-procurement system in their hospitals, then they were able to save 19%, pretty close to 20, of their spendings. Because competition was really tough. No basis for secret agreements, corruption, and they were able to save taxpayers' money. We can find a lot of that kind of success stories from Europe. It's not up to the European Commission to promote some kind of election systems, but in the country I know best, we started to use e-elections. You know, people, they can elect via the internet, vote via the internet. We started to use this system in the year 2005 already. And when we started with this system during our municipal elections in Estonia, then just 10,000 people, they took part in those elections. But during the last parliamentary elections, during the last elections to the European Parliament, even 32% of all those voters, they voted electronically. This year we had problems with our smart ID cards, with the digital identities. Everybody has. It's because of chips, not problems generated somewhere in Estonia, but this is about billion chips, and Estonia is small, 1.3 million inhabitants. We were able to deal with those issues. But anyway, people, they gave strong support to e-elections. And according to public opinion polls, those people who started to use e-elections already, if something will happen with this system, according to them, government has to fix those problems, and they would like to continue with e-elections. They are not ready to return back to those traditional methods. I am absolutely sure we have to provide modern possibilities to take part in public life also for those people who are just living in the internet. And as we know, in practically all of EU member states, those people, they are not just youngsters. They are also elderly people who are just living in the internet. So we have to provide also participation in political life using those modern methods. This was about inclusiveness. So I'm happy that also here in Hungary, now government started to pay attention on those digital public services. They just introduced this e-prescription system here. They are introducing also those digital identities here, medical health records and electronically and so on. You know, things are moving on also here in Hungary. So once again, digital public services as a rule, more efficient, more transparent, more inclusive,
Okay,
which is good for democracy.
unfortunately, we have reached our time limit. Sorry, Andre, for that. I have just one sort of final remark to sort of round it off, and perhaps you have a short answer to this at hand. When I was
Short answer, me.
when
you know,
I was
you cannot put
when I
those
was
things
listening
together.
when I was listening to your speech and the answers, I thought you must be the happiest member of the European Commission currently, because it seems that the story of the digital single market in a way continues a story which was associated with Europe many years ago, because you talked about the original single market, and that was a big promise. You know, Europe is equivalent with things becoming cheaper. We have more exchange, we have more competition, and we have immediate benefits for citizens. So my question to the end is do you feel this when you sort of reach out? And we also should say that he's a vice president of the Commission, so that means there is some political importance attached to this portfolio of the digital single market. Do you have that feeling that this is a topic where you reach out to citizens, where they see these benefits? Because what you have been talking about, roaming, cross-border shopping, and so on and so forth, access to digital content, I mean, these must be things European citizens should love or should associate positively with the Commission.
Yeah, this is not just about me, but I think all the people, they have to believe in what they are dealing with. If they don't believe, then forget about this job. And when talking about other professions, the same story. I believe in a bright digital future we will have in the European Union. And I believe that we will have this leading position in the world in many, many areas when talking about digitization. Of course, I'm lucky one, but when we launched this digital single market strategy, then I said that no easy victories. It will be an uphill struggle. And now we can see that generally everybody is supporting, but when going into details, then there are different interests. It's not so that some people, they are just, you know, bad people, old-fashioned, and so on, and that's why opposing to those proposals. But situations, they're different. As I described in the very beginning of our meeting, those roaming surcharges and situations in southern part of Europe and in northern part of Europe. So this is hard work to find this right balance, and I'm absolutely sure that it doesn't matter in south or north, west or east. In the end of the day, politicians and people, they will get this understanding anyway that to act together it will be more beneficial for all of us than to continue separately alone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Köszönöm mindet!